We all expected a good Dracarys on this one, but all we got was a loud bark. Yes, I know I was disappointed too, but come to think of it, that would have wrapped up the entire story into just one season, and that is not what we want. So why did Princess Rhaenys spare the Hightowers at Aegon's coronation? Episode 9 of House of the Dragon had plenty of excitement taking place, but no event may have been more substantial than Aegon Targaryen's coronation. During the ceremony in the Dragon Pit, after being anointed by the Faith of the Seven, disaster strikes for the young king and his supporters. Rhaenys escapes her confinement in the Red Keep thanks to the exploits of Kingsguard knight, Ser Erryk Cargyll, making her way to the bowels of the Dragon Pit's dungeons to retrieve her dragon Meleys, the Red Queen. Meleys and Rhaenys erupt from the floor of the pit, flattening commoners and sending them scrambling for safety. As Aegon, his family, and supporters look on from the dais, Meleys lets out a terrifying roar before flying through the Dragon Pit's gates and departing King's Landing. This event was certainly thrilling, but it also likely had more than a few fans and watchers confused. Rhaenys had made her support for Rhaenyra and her claim to the Iron Throne clear, and the supporters of Aegon, the Greens, had confined her to keep her from opposing his ascent as king after the death of her cousin, King Viserys. Given all that, why didn't Rhaenys have Meleys burn the Greens alive before she left? In the minds of many, this certainly would have solved any issues with the line of succession, leaving Rhaenyra as the clear-cut heir to the Seven Kingdoms of Westeros. Showrunners, Miguel Sapochnik and Ryan Condal remarked that while the scene in the Dragon Pit should certainly send a message, the Queen who never was, still has her morals to take into account. Condal stated that as a mother herself, Rhaenys likely couldn't see herself taking the life of Alicent Hightower along with her children. While the likes of Otto Hightower or Sir Criston Cole likely wouldn't have bothered her much, the thought of murdering Alicent and her children by Viserys likely stayed her hand, as she herself is a mother and could likely imagine the grief caused. Instead, Rhaenys sends a message in a heroic moment by intimidating the Greens before departing to Dragonstone to inform Rhaenyra of the coup taking place. It's certainly a decision that many fans and watchers have disputed since Episode 9's airing, but it may be necessary to dig a bit deeper into Rhaenys' character to determine why she made the decision she did in this iconic moment. Sapochnik and Condal have provided the face value assessment, but if we examine what has transpired for Rhaenys over the course of Season 1, her refusal to kill the Greens appears much more justified. Of course, some fans will still have wished Meleys cooked the Greens to completion in Dragonfire, but perhaps they can at least understand Rhaenys' reasoning at the end of the day. One needs only to look back at previous episodes and the events that have unfolded to see why the Lady of Driftmark might pull back from outright torching her opposition. Family is a huge motivation in this scene in particular. While it's true that the Hightowers have made a move against Rhaenyra, it's important to remember that Alicent is still the wife of the late King Viserys, and all of her children, flaws and all, are still Viserys' children as well. Even as his sickness began to take him, Viserys was adamant about the cohesion of family and did not wish under any circumstance for his kin to be harmed. It's why we see the king banish his brother, Daemon Targaryen, time and time again for his scandalous actions, as opposed to having him executed on the spot. Even after Daemon outright murders Vaemond Velaryon in the throne room of the Red Keep, Viserys resists the most bloodthirsty of reprisals. If the king was this gracious towards his reckless and disrespectful brother, it goes without saying that he wouldn't want a hair on his children or cousins harmed either. Not every Targaryen has this quality, but Viserys' passion and love for his family is a huge influence on Rhaenys' decision. With the king gone, who is Rhaenys to take the lives of his wife and children? Even if they're going against his wishes, that Rhaenyra would rule in his stead.
It was ever my husband's will that Driftmark pass through Selene to his true-born son, Lucerys Velaryon. His mind never changed, nor did my support of him.
There's a political angle to consider as well. Westeros and its alliances between the great houses are constantly shifting. If Rhaenys had burned the inhabitants of the Dragon Pit alive during Aegon's coronation, many of the banners that had previously supported Rhaenyra's faction may have withdrawn their support. Acts of barbarism by previous kings such as Maegor Targaryen are a constant reminder that violent acts have consequences. In Maegor's situation, he had the mighty Balerion, the Black Dread as his dragon, which likely cowed many houses into complying with the vicious monarch's actions. However, some lords paramount in Westeros still staunchly opposed his actions, with some declaring support for Prince Rhaenys Targaryen as a reprisal. Those brave enough to stand against Maegor were spared much of his rage, when he was unexpectedly found dead upon the Iron Throne, but the lessons of Maegor the Cruel's rule were instilled in future generations of Targaryens to not let rage and violence overtake their decisions. Of course, we all know by now that the Dance of the Dragons has begun. Rhaenys' departure to Dragonstone has all but sealed that fate. Rhaenys' decision likely could have made Rhaenyra's ascent as queen easier, but there's no guarantee the realm wouldn't have bled as a result. Perhaps not in the way the dance will ravage the Seven Kingdoms and House Targaryen, but the results could have been just as traumatic. Nonetheless, some might say that the coming war was unavoidable, no matter the choices that Rhaenys made in that singular moment in the Dragon Pit. King Viserys even alluded to this, in Episode 1 with his decision to call the Great Council of 101 AC to name his heir and avoid a war of succession. As Rhaenyra remarked clearly in the opening monologue, the old king knew, the only thing that could tear down the House of the Dragon was itself. Thank you for watching and be sure to like and subscribe to help the channel and catch more videos just like this one.